find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
What time is it? Let me check my watch. Oh, it's Bone-o'clock.
I want to hear some Bone-anza remix music.
Hit it! Bone-anza.
Thank you. Bone-anza. Thank you.
Bone-anza.
Count it. Bone-anza. Thank you. We're having a Bone-anza.
Bone-anza.
Thank you. Thank you. Count it. Count it.
Bone-anza. Bone-anza.
Bone-anza. Bone-anza. You know, it's not like any other day. It's a Bone-anza day.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie. Where is my co-host Schwartz? Well, to answer you, she is getting her eyeballs blasted, and so we are taking this week off from giving you a brand new episode, but I have prepared for you a Bone-anza supercut of some of our favorite stories from the past, so I hope that you enjoy it. Have a lovely day, appreciate your bones, and an early bon voyage. Take it away, us.
Some of the things are actually, I started researching for previous episodes and thought, wow, that's really cool, but I don't think I can talk about it for like 15-20 minutes. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Me too. And I think the theme for this Bone-anza is going to be bones or, bone-like substances, as all will be cleared up in one moment. But bones found in unusual locales, unusual places.
We kept it kind of broad so that we could kind of go where we wanted about this. And Sophie, I think you should go first.
Well, I am happy to go first because I've got something fun for you. This is an article from the Daily Mail UK. Teen buys $5 thrift shop teddy bear for his sister, but is mortified to find inside an urn full of somebody's ashes.
No.
Yes. This article was written by James Gordon, and the story is from 2014. But basically the gist of it was this boy from Alabama went to this thrift shop, and he found this cute little teddy bear, and he bought it for his little sister. And when he was feeling the teddy bear after he bought it, he realized there was something hard in there. And he was like, oh shit, and unzipped the back of the teddy bear and pulled out this maybe like 3 or 4 inch high, 2 or 3 inches in diameter little urn. You can look up pictures of this. Maybe we'll pop that on the Instagram. But he pulled out this little urn filled with human remains that was inside this teddy bear. And, they went on the news to talk about it. And they're really nice people because they were like, yeah, we don't want to keep this. We want to give it back to the person.
No.
Who it belongs
we don't want to
to.
keep this at all. Like, oh my God, that somebody should be missing that.
Yeah. And they were very nice. They were like, it could be someone's, parent, or it could be someone's child. And they just really want to get it back to the people who it belongs to. And they contacted several funeral homes to see if anyone had made something like this, but they didn't have any leads and no one remembers who donated it. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. So it's unsolved?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Damn it. What year was this again?
This is 2014. So if you're listening to this and you donated a teddy bear full of human remains, someone found it.
In Alabama?
Yeah, from a thrift shop called the Second Chance Thrift Shop in Dothan, Alabama. So if that's near you,
keep an eye out, I guess, or an ear out. Oh my God. That's wild. Bone-anza.
Bone-anza.
Thank you.
It is wild, and it just goes along with that whole, like, you never know what you're going to find in a thrift shop type of things. I know our friend Nick is an avid thrift shop hunter, and I wonder if he's ever found anything kind of freaky. Oh, he did buy me that vintage vibrator. Do you remember that?
That's right.
It's like old vibrator. I did not use it. I hoped it wasn't used. I didn't touch it a lot. I actually abandoned it. Anyway, urn full of ashes.
Wow. Bone-anza. So I'm going to take you somewhere else. I'm gonna
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you to ancient China.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to the website for the National Museums of Scotland because they have like
Okay.
a bunch of museums, I think, under the same umbrella. And apparently they have a significant collection of oracle bones, which is the second largest in the world outside of China.
Ooh, what are oracle bones?
I'm glad you asked. Quote, oracle bones are parts of animal bone used in divination ceremonies in ancient China. Yep. So, honestly, I'm going to just... I can't believe I'm going to say this. The only example I could think of seeing, like, oracle bones used in, like, the media or current times was fucking Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, you're right.
And we don't like Johnny Depp on this podcast in particular.
We don't.
But I guess I can't say that I don't like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, so whatever. But at one point, I'm pretty sure a character, and I can't remember her name, but she's like a spiritual person in like the second or third. Yeah, kind of priestess in the second or third movie, and is like using these like I thought they were stones, but they probably weren't. They were probably bones, and you like throw them on the ground and they tell you maybe the future. I feel like maybe Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they could have done it. I feel like Willow could have gotten into some oracle bones.
Maybe, but I think in Stardust, what's that movie called? Stardust?
Yeah, Stardust, the best movie of all time.
That we both love. Michelle Pfeiffer has those scrying bones. I think they're runes, like where she throws them up and then they come down and she reads them and it shows her like which way to go. Scrying bones and runes and stuff are big in like fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. So there is some historical precedent for that. So I'm setting the scene. So picture that priestess in Pirates of the Caribbean, or Michelle Pfeiffer, or like possibly Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Your fave witch. Your witch of choice.
Yeah. So usually these oracle bones were the shoulder bone of an ox or like part of a tortoise's shell, which is interesting. So the collection in the National Museum of Scotland is from the late Shang dynasty, which is about 1200 to 1050 BC. And it was found at a site, Sinshu site. I'm definitely not saying that right. It's Yinxu. So I have no idea how to say that one, unfortunately. And it's near Anyang City in central China. We'll call it that. We'll call it Anyang City. And so they started excavating this site in 1928, and it revealed like so much about ancient Chinese culture. There were palaces and temples and workshops, residential areas, and of course cemeteries. And they realized, as we've seen in multiple cultures, that these burials were like very elaborate and they were used to worship the ancestors. I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but really they wanted the ancestors to protect them. They honored their ancestors. The ancestors would protect the living. That's what we want always.
Sounds good to me.
I love it.
Please.
Yeah. So they actually, this is just an aside, this is not really to do with oracle bones, but they did excavate the burial site of a queen named Fu Hao, and this was in 1976, so a little bit later, and it yielded like 2,000 items, some of that 460 bronze items, 750 jade items. So bronze and jade kind of gets into, or it's like part of the way they pay respect to the dead is these objects made of bronze and jade. This is like one of the most important archaeological sites in China. It's actually a World Heritage Site, and it was dubbed that in 2006. Okay.
Wow. I'm just going to say, this is why grave goods are important. Mm-hmm. Like, bury your people with their shit.
2,000 items this queen had with her. It's amazing.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah. God.
Okay, so like I said, I'm kind of jumping all around here. I'm going to tell you about the oracle bones for sure now. So these ceremonies were a way to like get guidance from the ancestors that they honored so much. They would use these ceremonies to get like advice about military strategy or like what crops they were going to grow. Like if they were going to have children or like if it was going to be a boy or a girl. You know, obviously gender is not a thing, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And they also, I guess, would even ask the bones to tell them when the king's toothache would end or whatever. I don't know. Fun little detail.
You know, well, when you're in ancient China and you've got a toothache, there's like not a lot that can be done. So I would definitely be like, can you ask these motherfucking bones when my tooth will feel better?
Yeah, exactly. The craziest thing about these oracle bones is they are inscribed and they often have details of the ceremonies or like the name of the person carrying out the ceremony, like what they were asking. And sometimes it even tells you what like happened, I guess.
Oh my God. Fuck yes, this is amazing. That's like the premium where like you have the object and you also have written on the object, hey, this is what I used it for. Mm-hmm. This is who was involved. This is what happened.
Thank you.
That's an archaeologist's wet dream. Like
this actually is the earliest known writing in East Asia, and it's considered the root of modern Chinese writing.
That's so fucking cool. God, that's cool.
Yeah. So they started kind of finding these oracle bones, and they've always wanted to try and figure out what these inscriptions mean because, of course, it can tell you so much, like we were talking about. It also has like kind of a mature for the time or like sophisticated like a writing system. It has like some kind of structure in its grammar, and the characters like clearly mean different things. They've identified about 5,000 individual characters, but they're only a third of the way through, according to this article. Yup.
Fuck.
Yeah. So they used these oracle bones, you know, at the royal court. There were diviners or, you know, people that would use these bones to bring messages to the king or see, like, if the king needed guidance on, you know, like we said, military stuff or, like, why is there a drought or why is there a fire? What's happening?
Hey, can you get my guy? I want to know what the fuck with this drought. I'm tired of it.
Okay, so what do we think they did with these oracle bones? Like, they're in pieces now. So, during the ceremony, they think that the bones were prepared with these grooves and hollows, and then they were heated until they were fractured. And these fractures are what they thought was divine.
Oh,
so they're interpreting.
They were reading the cracks?
They were reading the cracks, exactly. So I think the way I understand it, and of course I don't fucking know, they would write all this stuff down on the piece of the bone, and then they would heat it up in a special way. I feel like I read somewhere that they would like sometimes put little holes in the bones to put like a heating source through. I don't know. But it's just, so they're looking at the cracks in the bones to interpret messages from their ancestors.
That's so cool.
I know.
Damn.
I know.
I love witchcraft from, like, I'm not calling this witchcraft, but I love, like, mystical, spiritual kind of stuff from other cultures. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, yeah. There's also evidence, of course, of human and animal sacrifice. We're going to get that a lot in these ancient cultures. And I'm just going to...
God damn it, why?
I know. But basically, ancient people really wanted to pay respect to the dead. They weren't necessarily afraid of death in the way that we were talking about, that you were talking about earlier, Soph. And I'm going to end with a quote from the article. Quote, "These rituals were intended to build a positive relationship with both ancestors and deities, encouraging them to send blessings and guidance to the living. The many rich artifacts in tombs and the cost of investing in ceremonies such as oracle bone divination also showcase the status and wealth of the dead and their living relatives. So these are themes we see over and over in the stories that we cover, that
Yes.
death is often you can use your death to proclaim your status, sometimes for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years even. And
yeah,
every culture was doing it. And something else that I'm going to finish talking after this, but like, it's just amazing. What I'm learning from all of these ancient cultures and all this work we're doing is, people have been afraid of death for a long time, I think, but there's also always been an appreciation and a reverence for it. And, that's something that is actually one of the big goals of this podcast, is to pay reverence to the dead, but also to not be so afraid of it. I'm trying to embrace it. That was the thing that I spiraled on as a kid, was like, I'm going to die. I can't sleep because I'm going to die. Anyway, this is so off topic, but yeah, it's fascinating.
No, I agree with you. I think it's fascinating. And also, like, that is totally a goal of this podcast, is to kind of to investigate death and to think about it in a way that isn't so scary, and to think about all the different rituals that we have around death around the world. Mm-hmm. I just, I love learning about other people's cultures.
We're really doing it. Yeah, we're really doing it.
Okay, I have a question for you. How do you feel about mannequins?
I don't like to see one in the dark.
Do they creep you out?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So I'm going to be talking about La Pascualita, who is a mannequin in Chihuahua, Mexico, who is believed to be not a mannequin, but a preserved corpse.
No.
Check out the picture that I sent you.
I'm creeped out. Oh my God. Why do they think this is a corpse? Why is her neck so long?
All questions we all have.
I have to turn this off.
Yeah, don't look at her too hard. So my sources for this were an article from All Things Interesting, Atlas Obscura, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and a YouTube video from our favorite mortician, Caitlin Doty. So La Pascualita is, not your average mannequin. As I showed you, she has a pretty haunting face and very realistic looking features. It is a local rumor that she is not a dummy, but the extremely well-preserved corpse of the owner's daughter, who died from a black widow bite the night of her wedding.
Ooh.
Yeah. So for our listeners, what she looks like is she's a Caucasian mannequin with brown hair, and she's wearing like a kind of almost 80s style wedding dress. And she's displayed in the storefront of the La Popular store window, and she's been displayed there for 90 years.
Let me just also say she's got a beautiful tiara on and the just enormous eyelashes.
Yeah, her eyelashes are nuts. By like 2021 Instagram standards, they're popping.
Yes.
One might say. So she first made her appearance in the store window on March 25th, 1930. And she was wearing a gown from the spring summer collection, which I thought was interesting. I'm a fashion person, so I like to see that. Immediately, locals were struck by how realistic she looked. They were also really concerned about her uncanny resemblance to the owner, Pascuala Esparez, or rather, she looked a lot like his recently deceased daughter.
Ooh.
So all of these rumors begin flying around the mannequin, and this story kind of starts to form about her. And this is the story. So according to legend, the daughter of the owner was preparing to be married when she was bitten by a black widow, and she succumbed to its poison the night before her wedding. And not long after that, her father, so distraught with grief, not being able to take the fact that his daughter had died, embalms her and puts her in the wedding dress that she was supposed to be married in and puts her in this window for all to see.
Oh my God.
Which gives me the absolute creeps.
Yeah, 100%. That's no good.
Yeah. And there are a couple different versions of the story. In one version, she's bitten by a scorpion. In another version, she actually, unfortunately, commits suicide by jumping off a cliff because her mother did not approve of her husband-to-be.
Oh, God.
Which is sad, which is horrible.
I don't believe that one, though, because how would she look so good?
Exactly. If you take a tumble off a cliff, you do not look that pristine.
No.
So on closer inspection, La Pascualita, which is kind of Spanish for like Pascuala was the name of the owner. So it's like little Pascuala. So if you look at her hands, she has very realistic looking fingernails. You can even kind of see veins in her hands, like varicose veins, but she doesn't look like other preserved corpses. If you take a look at like Lenin or Mao, you can see that there's quite a difference between those embalmed faces and her like almost wooden-esque kind of face and expression. There are a lot of fun rumors about her. My favorite is that there was a French magician who would come at night to bring her to life. And they would go out on the town and they would go dancing and drinking and have a wonderful time. And then he would return her to the window and freeze her back into her frozen spell.
Oh, yeah. A Toy Story scenario.
Yes, Toy Story, but it's with a lady corpse.
Yeah.
Other rumors are that her eyes will follow you around the shop as you look for the dress of your choice.
No.
Many people have reported looking at her and then looking away and seeing that she's in a slightly different position than when they saw her before. I know.
Get out of here.
One shop worker named Sonia Burciaga, who changes the dummy's clothes, says, quote, "Every time I go near Pascualita, my hands break into a sweat. Her hands are very realistic, and she even has varicose veins on her legs. I believe she is a real person."
Okay.
So shivers. So this mannequin has never gone under any sort of scientific test. You know, no one's ever tried to autopsy it or CAT scan it or anything like that. But if you watch Caitlin Doty's video, she's a mortician. She has a couple really great points about why La Pascualita is probably not a corpse. First of all, she points out the heat. This is in Chihuahua, Mexico, so it's hot, and she's in a glass-fronted window, which is extra hot. So even the best embalming techniques, modern embalming techniques, still would not help a body from decomposing in those circumstances. Like if you, again, going back to like Lenin and Mao, I know for Lenin in particular, the continual re-embalming, and they take him apart and they put him back together. There's a whole team and research center just around ensuring that this guy looks as good as he can. And millions of dollars are spent on preserving this corpse, and that guy still has mold on him sometimes.
Whoa.
La Pascualita is pristine.
Yeah. What does she have that Lennon doesn't have?
I don't know. It's, amazing eyelashes. Some people say that she might be taxidermied, which is just a horrific thing. I'm sorry I had to say that out loud, but she is probably not, because taxidermy doesn't really work very well on people, because for animals, when you taxidermy them, the stitches and the seams and stuff like that can be hidden by fur or feathers or really long hair. And La Pascualita, even if all of her seams and stitches were under her dress, it still wouldn't work. You'd see them on the wrists, you'd see the way it was stretched. The skin would look like skin, and even though it does on the mannequin, like,
yeah, it's probably not a dead body, but it's crazy that people have thought it is for a really long time.
for like 90 years. We're coming on almost 100 years of this, but she has just become a local symbol. And people sometimes, they bring her little stuff. They come to visit her. So, real corpse or not, she's an important person.
That is interesting. Oh my God.
Yeah, but it'll be up on the Instagram, but there's a picture where, and it's what I sent to Katelyn, of a picture of the owner's daughter and a picture of the mannequin. And there is definitely a certain resemblance.
Yeah, it's not that crazy to see a resemblance and like how that rumor maybe got started.
But I
yeah,
just
it's
feel
crazy. It's endured.
Yeah, but I just feel so bad for the owner because his daughter just died, and now everyone wants to accuse him of being like a taxidermy
Yeah.
creep.
We don't like that.
We don't love that. But having worked, but let me just say, I used to work in a wedding dress store. And it would have made things a lot more interesting if there was a corpse mannequin.
Maybe you'd still be there.
Maybe.
Hey, Freaky Friends! It's Michelle and Melissa from the Freaky Fridays podcast. We are sisters in separate states and love to talk about all kinds of spooky, freaky, and scary shit while drinking and laughing through our fear.
Join us Fridays as we delve into everything from the world of the paranormal to scary movies to creepy stuff we find around the internet. Subscribe to Freaky Fridays wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Sleep tight.
Make sure you leave the lights on.
Freaky Fridays is a proud member of the Podmoth Network. For more awesome pods, check out podmoth.network.
What do you got?
Is it my turn?
I think it's your turn because that's the end of my story. About the old tomb.
All right. Well, I've got someone I want you to meet.
Ooh, a new friend?
Yes. Meet Stucky, the mummified dog who has been stuck in a tree for over 50 years.
Oh, Stucky.
Stucky. This is from allthat'sinteresting.com, and it is by Katie Serena, and it was published in January 2018.
Ooh. Tell me about the doggy.
Loggers in Georgia were working on a grove of chestnut oaks, and they found something pretty crazy. They cut off the top of a tree, loaded it into their truck, and then somebody looked in, and in the hollow trunk, he found, quote, the perfectly mummified remains of a dog looking back at him, its teeth still barred in a fight for survival.
Oh, buddy.
I know.
How'd you get in there?
I know. I'm going to send you a picture of Stucky. Oh, you might not like it.
Oh, Lord. That is terrifying. I feel bad for this dog.
I should have told you a little sooner. You wouldn't like it.
The eyes are bad. Grace,
the teeth are the scariest part to me. Again, listeners, never fear. We will put this on the Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, but you might not want to see it.
Yeah.
Oh, my. No, it's okay. I just...
Stucky!
I do agree. The teeth are the most horrifying part. If I had to pick a part to be...
Yeah, I've been with Stucky a little bit longer than you have, and I think it's the teeth.
Well, you're the expert.
Okay. Speaking of experts who studied Stucky think that he was a hunting dog from the 60s who probably chased like a squirrel or a mouse or something through a hole in the roots of the tree and up the center. The tree just got narrower and narrower. And because of the position of Stucky's paws, he probably just kind of wedged himself in there and couldn't turn around. And so he died in there.
Mm.
Yeah. So normally, of course, if an animal dies in the wilderness, there's scavengers, the elements, all kinds of stuff are going to sort of mess with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But because he was up in a tree, like so far up, it was pretty unlikely that other animals could smell him or like get to him.
Mhm.
And the tree that Stucky was in actually was uniquely qualified for this kind of natural mummification procedure. Chestnut oaks have tannins, which I talked about a little bit in our very first episode about when I talked about a peat bog body.
Yeah.
So tannins are used in taxidermy and tanning to treat like pelts and animal skins so they don't decay. And so tannins inside the tree seeped into the dog's remains and prevented it from rotting, basically. And it was a very dry environment inside a tree. Again, the elements didn't get to it, animals didn't get to it, and it was almost like a vacuum in there. And the picture that I sent you is the dog and the part of the tree are actually on display, just like that in that picture, at the Southern Forest World Museum. And I'm guessing that's in Georgia, where Stucky was found.
Oh, Stucky. Thank you for bringing Stucky.
I'm sorry, Stucky.
He was a good boy. He was just doing what his master wanted him to do.
Probably, or yeah, he just really wanted a squirrel.
He did. He wanted a squirrel so badly.
Did you ever have a dog, Soph?
I did have a dog. My family had a Yorkie named Olivia.
Oh.
Who was very cute, but also very annoying.
My parents and I had a Sheltie named Gracie, and she was real cute. She really thought she was cool when it came to squirrels, but she was not tough at all.
Yeah, no, my dog was not tough either.
Bone-anza!
Well, I think it might be time for a little double Bone-anza surprise.
Okay. Double Bone-anza surprise. I have a little opening, if I could maybe do that.
Please, I'm going to preface this with, so before we started doing this episode, sometimes we'll give each other a little rundown of what we're going to talk about. Nothing in detail, but we discovered that Darren and I share a topic. So we're going to present it in a tag team manner.
Yeah, we've probably thoroughly researched it enough that we know everything about what we're about to talk about.
So I'll let you pop it off, Darren.
All right. So, Katelyn, this is for you specifically now, because Sophie already knows all this. Katelyn, I want you to imagine that it's 1976.
Okay, I'm there.
You're at Queens Park in Los Angeles, inside of a ride called Laugh in the Dark.
I don't like it.
You're working as a crew on an episode of, or filming an episode of The $6 Million Man called Carnival of Spies.
Ooh,
There's a bunch of scenes where the $6 Million Man has to fight a German spy in this dark ride, the Laugh in the Dark. And so you notice that, this gallows attraction in here has a mannequin that needs to be moved. So you go to move the mannequin, and its arm falls off, revealing a human bone connecting it to the shoulder. Congratulations.
Oh, no.
You've just discovered the remains of Wild West bank robber Elmer McCurdy.
No, I didn't want to. I didn't sign up for this. I make $6 an hour.
Well, too bad for you. What you thought was a mannequin was a real human person.
No.
Well, let's start out with a little background on McCurdy himself. We're going to travel from the 1970s back to the 1880s. 1880 specifically, January 1st, when he was born.
Happy New Year.
Then flash forward a little bit to 1907 when he joins the United States Army. And I thought it was interesting that he was assigned to Fort Leavenworth.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
In Kansas.
In Kansas. Leavenworth is also a place in Washington that we all went on a fun snowy vacation to one time in a big haunted house. But he was then honorably discharged from the Quartermaster's Corps on November 7th, 1910. Then McCurdy made his way to St. Joseph, Kansas, where he met up with an army friend on November 19th. And McCurdy and his friend were arrested for possessing burglary paraphernalia. This would be chisels, hacksaws, funnels for nitroglycerin, and gunpowder, and sacks of money.
Sacks for money.
Sacks for money.
Oh, empty sacks.
Empty sacks for money.
Did they have a little dollar sign on the
You
outside?
got to imagine they did.
They absolutely did.
How else would you know they're for money if they didn't?
You wouldn't. You absolutely wouldn't. But the St. Joseph Gazette reported that during their arraignment, McCurdy and his friend told the judge that the tools that they had were not for burglaries. That's crazy. They were needed for work on a foot-operated machine gun they were inventing.
Yeah, that classic
Okay.
mix-up. Oh, no. We're not robbing a bank. We're making a machine gun.
That's foot-operated.
And they were found not guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sophie, you nailed it. I think the only thing I would add is that his 3 years in the army, he was like trained a little bit to use nitroglycerin in demolition. So there's like a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'll add to that he
Mhm.
did not get a lot of training on
Not a
how to
lot.
use nitroglycerin. But he decided that with his very little training in nitroglycerin, he was going to go ahead and try to use it for robberies.
Yeah.
I really want to add, the time between him getting discharged and getting arrested was 9 days.
So he got to work quickly.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta admire that endurance. I don't know. What's the word?
Ambition.
No. Ambition, sure.
Well, kind of, again, admiring his ambition. He tried to pull off a lot of ambitious heists, but was never very successful. He and 3 other men decided to rob the Iron Mountain, Missouri Pacific train after they heard that the train cars contained a safe with about $4,000 in it. And they successfully stopped the train and located the safe. McCurdy then put the nitroglycerin into the safe's door, but he used way too much, and the safe was destroyed in the blast, and the majority of the money was also destroyed.
Perfect.
Yeah, McCurdy and his partners got away with $450 in silver coins, most of which had been melted and fused to the safe's frame.
Oh, shit.
So they biffed it about as bad as you could.
Yeah.
Another robbery in September of 1911, McCurdy and 2 other men attempted to rob the Citizens Bank in Chautauqua, Kansas? Chautauqua, Kansas. So they spent 2 hours breaking through the bank wall with a hammer, and then McCurdy placed a nitroglycerin charge against the door of the bank's outer vault, and the blast blew the vault door through the bank, destroying the interior, but did not damage the safe inside the vault. So they basically...
Wait.
They blew up the bank around the safe.
Yeah, they did not blow up the safe. They blew up the bank around the safe.
I don't think this guy's going to learn from his mistakes. He's just going to keep using explosives badly to get
Caitlin,
nothing.
You're very smart.
Yeah. Because he tried to blow the safe open with more nitroglycerin, but the charge failed to ignite. And then after one of his buddies was like, I'm fucking out of here, and ran off, McCurdy and his accomplices stole about $150 in coins that were just sitting out on a tray. They were not even in the safe. They were just like, we can't get the safe. We're just gonna steal what's right over here.
Could I
Darren,
talk about his last crime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Darren, you want to talk about the last robbery?
So this is all happening in 1911, by the way. Like this is all happening pretty quickly after his discharge from the army, which was late 1910. So then I think this is October, he is hiding out in a farmer's hay shed, and he decides he's going to do the heist of the century. He's going to rob a train carrying $400,000 that's meant for the Osage Nation as like royalties. So he robs the wrong train. He ends up on a passenger train and is only able to get away with $46, 2 jugs of whiskey. What were they called? Demi-johns, which are basically like water cooler jugs, like that amount of liquid, and like the jacket and watch of the conductor, or the jacket of a passenger and the watch of the conductor. Like that's all he got.
He robbed the wrong fucking train.
Do you think 3 strikes you're out was an expression back then?
Yeah, baseball probably.
But he
existed.
didn't care.
No, he didn't get it.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, he was too busy being sick with tuberculosis.
Yeah, and an alcoholic.
Yeah, and pneumonia.
And pneumonia.
God. So he died of natural causes?
Oh,
No.
Okay.
After that, third strike, a $2,000 bounty was put on him, and a posse of 3 sheriffs tracked him down to the farm he was hiding out, and they had a shootout on October 7th, and he died.
Okay.
I would like to read a little quote from Sheriff Bob Fenton. Quote, "It began just about 7 o'clock. We were standing around waiting for him to come out when the first shot was fired at me. It missed me, and then he turned his attention to my brother, Stringer Fenton. He shot 3 times at Stringer, and when my brother got under cover, he turned his attention to Dick Wallace. He kept shooting at all of us for an hour. We fired back every time we could. We did not know who killed him. We found one of the jugs of whiskey which he had taken from the train. It was about empty. He was pretty drunk when we rode up onto the ranch last night."
Oh no.
So just picture a bunch of these lawmen and this drunk as hell incompetent robber having a shootout.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to think he's got to be pissed at this point. Like, wow, I might be bad at this. I think he's probably having an identity crisis.
Yeah. I'm
I
a
read
terrible robber.
I read a source that this was his last stand. He made that very clear to them. He's like, "You're not taking me alive," and they're like, "We don't have to."
No,
Yeah,
we don't care.
Wow. Okay, so this is not over.
Yeah, that's only half the story.
Yeah, we are not even.
Oh, God. Yeesh.
So he was taken to a local funeral home and no one was claiming his body. And so the guy who was the owner of the funeral home embalmed him and would kind of use him as a example of his work.
Yeah.
And people were pretty pleased about this, and they kind of came from all over to see this corpse of this robber. And then in October of 1916, there
5 years later.
5 years later. So this guy has been displayed as a corpse. Darren?
Here's what I had. The coroner kept him as an attraction in his lobby, dressing him up with a gun and calling him the bandit who wouldn't give up. And people would put nickels in his open mouth. This lasted for 5 years.
Oh my God. That is something. It's kind of gross.
It's very gross.
It's extremely gross.
It's a gross thing to do. Your instincts are correct.
Ew.
So 5 years goes by. He's getting a mouthful of money. And on October 16th, 1916, a man calling himself Aver contacted Joseph Johnson, who was the funeral home guy. And he claimed to be Elmer McCurdy's long-lost brother from California. Aver had said that he had contacted the Osage County, Oklahoma sheriff and attorney to get permission to get custody of the body and ship it to San Francisco for proper burial. The next day, Aver arrives at the funeral home with another man calling himself Wayne, who also claims to be McCurdy's brother. So Johnson gives them the body and they put it on a train, but instead of having it being shipped to San Francisco, it was instead shipped to Arkansas City, Kansas. The men who claimed to be McCurdy's long-lost brothers were in fact James and Charles Patterson, who were owners of the Great Patterson Carnival shows, which was a traveling carnival.
Okay. And they just wanted a corpse. All right.
Well, they
totally
wanted
normal.
his corpse.
Yeah, they
wanted his corpse.
They had heard specifically about the outlaw who would never give up. So they concocted this plan to steal his body.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of just continued to be passed around as a sideshow attraction for 20 years, kind of continuing. There's a lot of pictures of him in this state if you ever want to look up Elmer McCurdy. And I think he just at this point started really like degrading and looking less and less like a body and more like a mummy.
Yeah, there were accounts that when he was sold a number of times or like borrowed to a number of different like sideshows and like carnivals and like circuses and stuff like that. And he was being exhibited in a museum in Mount Rushmore. And there was a windstorm and the corpse sustained damage. The tips of the ears, along with fingers and toes, were blown off.
I have a quote about that. At that point, he was being shipped around with wax figures because that's what they thought he was.
Yeah.
And because of the weather damage, they deemed him too gruesome and not lifelike enough to be on exhibit. I want to throw
the only
in
one that's actually real.
I want to throw in something that happened before that. In 1933, it was acquired for a time by director Dwayne Esper to promote his exploitational film Narcotic. There's an exclamation point. The corpse was placed in the lobby of movie theaters as a dead dope fiend who Esper claimed had killed himself while surrounded by police after he'd robbed a drugstore to support his habit. At this point, the body was completely mummified and unrecognizable, which added to the like depraved like nature of drug users. Like, this is what you're gonna look like.
Yeah, that's what I read, is that he was used to be like, don't do drugs, kids. This is what you'll look like.
You'll look like this 40-year-old corpse. Yes, Caitlin.
Sorry, this was at a movie theater?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get your popcorn, you're trying to go see your movie, and there's a mummy that you have to walk past that's teaching you a lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah, and his mouth is full of like, you know, old nickels and tickets to what is it? Was it the Crime Museum?
I have it. The 1924 Pike Sideshow and Louis Sonny's Museum of Crime.
Yes, Louis Sonny's Museum of Crime.
Oh my God. Unreal.
After the Mount Rushmore incident, so 1968, it was sold to the owner of the theme park, Queensland was it called?
In Massachusetts?
No, in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Because they were filming a TV show there, as you do. And it was displayed there in this dark ride, hung up like a painted glow in the dark orange. That's worth noting.
Yes, he was covered in fluorescent paint.
And just hung up there for another 8 years.
Ugh, this poor guy.
Until the TV show discovered him and went on to identify him.
Yeah. So after the arm came off and it was evident that it was a real person, police were called, of course, and they took the mummified corpse to the Los Angeles coroner's office. And then on December 9th, Dr. Joseph Choi conducted an autopsy and determined that the body was a human male who died of a gunshot wound to the chest. The body was completely petrified, covered in wax and layers of phosphorescent paint. It weighed approximately 50 pounds.
Ugh.
A human body, a full-grown person. That's how much he had desiccated.
Ugh.
The examination also revealed incisions from his original autopsy and the embalming, and the tests conducted on the tissue showed the presence of arsenic, which was a huge component of embalming, kind of like what we talked about with our friend the tickler. Chatouillet. Tests also revealed tuberculosis in his lungs, which McCurdy had developed while working as a miner, and bunions and scars that McCurdy was documented to have. So they didn't find the bullet that caused his wound, but they think that it was taken out in the original autopsy. But basically all of these clues added up to him being Elmer McCurdy. A detail that I really liked was, kind of like Darren said, inside the mouth was a 1924 penny and ticket stubs to the West Pike Sideshow and Louis Sonny's Museum of Crime were inside his mouth.
The whole time.
The whole time. So on December 11th, the story of McCurdy's journey had been featured in newspapers and reported on television, and several funeral homes called the coroner's office offering to bury McCurdy free of charge. But officials decided to wait and see if he had any relatives.
It happened
No.
again. It happened again.
It happened again. It's happening again.
He doesn't have any relatives. Bury this guy.
Put this man in the ground. Nobody loves him. Just get him out of here. But eventually, Fred Olds, who represents the Indian Territory Posse of Oklahoma Westerns, eventually convinced them that the body should be allowed to be buried in Oklahoma. So on April 22nd, 1977, a funeral procession was conducted to transport McCurdy to Boot Hill section of the Summit View Cemetery in Guthrie, Oklahoma. And a grave service was attended by approximately 300 people who came to see the outlaw buried. And Katelyn, you'll love this, to ensure that McCurdy's body would not be stolen, 2 feet of concrete was poured over the casket.
That's right. That's the way to do it. Safe and sound under concrete.
Yes, that is how. If anyone I know wants to be buried whole, I'm gonna say fine, but you're gonna let me concrete your shit up. No one's taking you.
I just got to say that, like, I researched my stories, Achille first, and then my other story second, and then this story last. And I really should have done this one first because it had way more stuff to it than I was anticipating.
Yeah, we did a very brief skimming of how many places this
y'all
man
did
was
it.
in.
Y'all did a great job. It was seamless. It was almost as if you had rehearsed it, but I know you didn't.
We did not.
We did not.
On the Wikipedia page for Elmer, there was a map that basically shows the timeline of his entire life, how he went from Maine to Kansas to Oklahoma, and then like back and forth there a little bit, and then he died, and then to Arkansas, and then to California, and then to South Dakota, and then back to California. Like,
wow, well-traveled dude.
Well-traveled corpse.
Bone voyage. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter.
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
At Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Well, you know, sometimes the mood of bones just takes me, and I just want to say, let's talk about bones, baby. Let's talk about dead bodies. You know?
Yes, the power of bones compels us to be chill and cool today.